everyone, and welcome to today's workshop. My name is Becky, and we're going to be talking all about how to triple your sales by getting your internet marketing right. This is really a great training to be tuned into today, because whether you're running a lawn or landscaping company, the strategies that you're about to learn are built to help you keep better results, get your crews working, and keep them working. Scott's going to take you through the session.
Thanks, Becky. All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you here. Really looking forward to today's session. Like Becky said, we're going to be talking through our model on how to triple your sales by getting your internet marketing right. This is a model we've built out over the years. I do want to make this as practical and as actionable as possible. We've got a workbook we're going to share in a little bit. You're going to be able to dive into. And this is live and interactive. So I do want you to chat in with me and interact as we go so we can make this as helpful as possible to you guys. While I'm getting a couple more people in here while they're joining up, loading their Zoom, I'm just going to drop a quick poll for you guys to answer in the chat. Let us know by typing in what kind of company that you run. Is it lawn care? Is it landscaping? Is it full service? Something else? Share your company type into the chat. That's also going to give me some context as to who we've got with us today so we can make this as practical as possible for you guys. While you're answering what company type you are, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me 1 minute here. Okay, Crystal, full service. Excellent. Share your type in the chat, guys. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, firstly, we're going to discuss some emerging trends in online marketing you should be aware of. Then for the bulk of our time together, I want to walk you through our growth engine for tripling your sales by getting your internet marketing right. There are very specific things you can do in a very specific order that can lead to real results. And we want to give you the big picture model for that. We're going to talk about the most important online marketing channels you should be tapping into to grow your lawn or landscape business. And there's a lot, right? From SEO to pay-per-click to email and SMS marketing to retargeting, and then everything in between. We're going to talk about the key channels that you want to plug into. We're going to look at how to map your website to make sure it's a conversion machine that converts visitors into leads, leads into sales, and sales into those repeat customers. We're going to walk through the key strategies for generating better organic ranking, so you're showing up in the non-paid listings for your most important keywords. We're going to talk about how to win with local service ads, and that's a huge play in 2026, making sure you're Google guaranteed and that you're playing the game to win. And then we're going to dive into how to convert more of your leads into sales at the highest level possible. We're going to share some specific strategies to double or triple your conversion rate from a lead into a sale or to a booked job. We're going to cover other things as we go, but that's kind of the core. If that feels like a good use of your time today, just go ahead and type 1 into the chat. That lets me know we're plugging on along in the right direction. Real quick though, before we get too far into the meat of this, for those of you who I haven't connected with, I'm Scott Coullard with webSURGE Landscape Marketing. Our agency has been in business for over 20 years. But before I ever built a website or ran a paid ad, I spent about 6 years working on a lawn crew, long days, tight schedules, weather you can't control. I've lived that side of the industry too. And then as a company, when we first started marketing, we actually worked across multiple industries. So we worked with roofers, flooring companies, dentists. But over time, something became clear. The systems we were developing were producing especially strong results for lawn and landscape businesses. And the deeper we went, the more it made sense to focus there. So since making that shift, we've partnered with lawn and landscape companies in competitive markets across the country. We've seen what actually creates steady lead flow, stronger margins, and controlled growth. Not marketing theory, not trendy tactics, not something we read on ChatGPT, but proven systems that work for lawn and landscape companies in a variety of markets. And everything I'm covering today comes from that work, what we've built, what we've refined, and what continues to produce results for companies like yours. As we move through this, I'm going to share some real examples so you can see exactly how this applies to your market and how you can implement it inside your business. And this is what we do as a team. At webSURGE Landscape Marketing, we're a full-service digital marketing agency built specifically for lawn and landscape companies. We're on a mission to help 100 lawn and landscape contractors double their revenue. That's why we run trainings like this. These sessions aren't meant to be fluff surface level ideas. They're meant to actually give you guys clarity, real strategy you can think through and apply to your own business. And if at some point you decide you'd like help implementing that, if you'd rather not build it all yourself, we're always open to that conversation. We'd love to explore what working together could look like and how we could help you put these strategies into action. That's completely zero pressure. We're going to take a look at what you're currently doing, walk through what's working, point out where there might be opportunities to improve or tighten things up. And if you're sitting there thinking, it'd be helpful to have someone review what we're doing and just give us some honest feedback and a few tips, we're happy to do that for you. You can schedule a complimentary strategy session at wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule. Mark or Becky, if you could please drop a link into the chat, that'd be great. You can also just scan that QR code and you can get access to that as well. So let's get into this, right? Why is internet marketing important? Why should we even be thinking about how we can do better with our digital marketing strategy? There's a couple of things. I really believe that marketing is going to make or break your business, regardless of how good you are on the technical side of the equation, how good you are with your lawn care, your landscaping, your installs. If you don't have customers calling in and inquiring, you don't have any work to do, right? There's really no opportunity for growth. There's no opportunity to build that team. So getting the right marketing strategy in place and having it be something you can rely on for your growth, that's super important. I think the other reason it's important is that you, the owners of lawn and landscape companies, make a big investment in marketing. Historically, over the years, it was Yellow Pages back in the day, also doing some printed materials like door hangers. Then more recently, it's been a major shift, investing in SEO, pay-per-click, social media, and everything in between. And unfortunately, a lot of times you actually wind up not getting the return on investment you were looking for, right? You're spending money, you're getting a little bit of growth, but it's just not where you need it to be. And so I think it's really important to dial in that strategy and make sure you've got a tangible, measurable return on where your money's going. But really, I think in today's market, the biggest reason marketing is important is the opportunity cost of an idle crew. We all know how hard it is to find good people and how hard it is to get your team ramped up and fully productive. And if you wind up with crews sitting idle, looking at their phones, not doing any work, you're going to run the risk of them leaving for another company, maybe starting their own operation, or just not being able to keep them on staff, which is a big, big problem that needs to be solved. And so those are the reasons in my mind, if we don't solve for that, if we can't spend $1 and then get a great return on investment to keep the crews working, you're not going to be able to get the outcomes that you're after in terms of the growth of your business. So the opportunity we're looking at to solve for in today's session specifically is to make sure we nail our marketing. We've got a great strategy that keeps the phone ringing, that we have a great return on investment, right? We're spending the money anyway. We might as well make sure we're getting the best return on investment possible so we can continue to spend those dollars, so that we can continue to grow, so we can continue to get the outcomes that we're after. So make sure we generate enough leads to hit our revenue targets, to keep the crews running, to keep the business flowing, so you don't have the opportunity cost, and we are ready to bring on that next crew. There's a strategy, there's a knob you can turn to make sure you've got enough volume to keep that new group busy. And so in my mind, success is maximizing your lead flow, hit our sales goals, and have a continually growing lawn or landscape business, which is absolutely possible in today's market. So like I mentioned before, we do have a workbook that we're going to track along with. You can access that by going to wslandscapemarketing.com/workbook. Mark or Becky, if you could also just drop that into the chat real quick, you guys can grab that right there. You'll click make a copy. That'll be your own copy. We won't have access to that. So you can kind of take notes and jot things down as we go along. That's going to be super helpful for you guys in this. Before we get too deep into the chat today, though, like I mentioned first, I want to start off by calling out some of the most important trends happening right now that you should be aware of. One of the biggest is AI, obviously, right? Type AI into the chat if you've used tools like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Coullard, either for your business or just personally to help solve problems in your day-to-day. We use AI every single day inside our business in a ton of different ways. And what we're seeing is a real shift. More and more people are starting to use tools like ChatGPT or Bing because the search results are baked right in. Now, Google is still the 800-pound gorilla in the room. It's still where most people go when they need to hire a company, but we're watching the trend. We want to make sure we're positioning your business to come with those results too, not just on Google. And then the second big trend we're seeing is online scheduling. In the past, we all just wanted that phone call, get them to call in. That was the whole goal. But today's customer, they want to use their app. They want to just schedule the service and move on. So if your website only offers a form or a phone number, you're going to lose customers. they're going to bounce off your site, go to the next company that does let them schedule directly online. Let's also talk about texting. Today's customer would rather text you than talk to you. I'm not saying stop answering your phones live, but you need to know there's a whole segment of your customer base who would absolutely prefer to just ask you a few quick questions via text and book that way. And if you're not giving them that option, you're going to end up losing them. There are companies right now leveraging automation to get ahead. So that's faster lead follow-up. They're sending automated review requests after the job. They're reactivating old customers automatically at just the right time. And they're using automations and AI to generate referrals. And if you're not paying attention to those trends, if you're not thinking about where things are headed, you're going to waste a lot of money. So we got to recognize, the market has shifted and it keeps changing. And we want to be ahead of where our competition is so we can stand out in your local market, get a lower cost per customer, and increase profitability in our organization. We've got to get in front of those trends, not behind them. I'm going to check the chat real quick here. Okay, a bunch of AIs. Excellent. All right, excellent. So for the next part of the workshop, I want to start off with a story. I love stories, and I think they help us take these big picture ideas like marketing and connect them on a more personal level. I want to tell you the story of Hunter Springs Landscape Artisans. They're a heavy design, build, and maintenance firm based in upstate New York. When we met their team, the business had been around for 37 years, built on referrals, word of mouth, which had always kept them busy. But then at some point, especially post-COVID, things started to drop off for them. And it was just like, man, we're not getting the phone calls we need to keep our crews busy and to keep things moving. And what Hunter Springs realized, and probably what you've realized too, which is why you're on today's session, is that referrals just weren't enough anymore. That surge in business from COVID was over. People had moved on. They just weren't hearing about Hunter Springs through word of mouth like they used to. Their previous customers and new prospects were going online. And now that's not new information today, but it was a turning point for these guys because if customers aren't coming through referrals, they've got to be looking somewhere, right? We know in today's market, 97% of your customers use the internet in some form or fashion before reaching out about your services. So they're going to Google, they're going to Bing, they're going to ChatGPT, they're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, they're on Angie's List. And at that moment in time, Hunter Springs had to make a decision. If the internet is where people are, they had to make sure they were showing up online, not where people used to look in the past. And at that time, Hunter Springs' big question was, how do we own the internet in our area? So what Hunter Springs did is what a lot of companies do. They said, okay, referrals aren't enough anymore. People are going online. We need to do something. Now, to be clear, at this point, they had already hired someone to handle their website and their SEO. They weren't doing nothing. They had a marketing person. They had someone managing the site. They had someone doing SEO, but here's what was happening with that. They're paying a decent amount of money and not seeing any return on that. They weren't getting enough qualified leads. They were getting tire kickers. They weren't getting consistent phone calls, and they didn't have the internal capacity to manage it themselves. They're running crews. They're managing 15 to 20 employees peak season. They got maintenance. They got hardscape. They've got a horticulture division. They don't have time to log into WordPress or their website and tweak pages. They didn't know which marketing channels to invest into to promote their growth. So they were stuck in this place of, okay, we're spending money, but it's not really moving the needle. And that's a dangerous place to be, right? Because when marketing only produces revenue equal to what you're spending, you're losing money at that point. You spend $5,000 and maybe you generate $5,000 or $6,000. After that, you need to buy the materials for the job, pay the crew, maintain your equipment. After all that, you're worse off than when you started. And that's where these guys were. They knew SEO alone wasn't enough. They knew they needed to market other divisions like their maintenance services. They knew they wanted to grow the hardscaping side too. And they knew referrals weren't carrying them anymore, but they didn't have a strategy that tied it all together. And that's when they realized it wasn't just about doing SEO. It was about building a complete intentional marketing engine that could generate qualified leads consistently, even in those slow seasons, even in that post-COVID boom, even when the industry was down. And that shift from dabbling in marketing to engineered marketing, that's when things started to change for these guys. And this is where I really want you thinking clearly about in today's market, because one of the biggest mistakes lawn landscape companies make right now is believing there's one silver bullet when it comes to your marketing. Maybe it's the SEO, maybe it's the website, maybe it's paid ads, maybe it's posting on Facebook. But if someone is telling you this is the only thing you need to focus on, just do this and you're going to be fine, that's dangerous, right? It's almost like back in the day saying, just stay in yellow pages, that's going to be enough. And the market just doesn't work like that anymore. Online marketing is a lot like collecting change. You might find a little bit in your truck, a little bit more from the junk drawer, another few coins in your pockets. But then once you've collected from all those different sources, you have a pretty good chunk of change, right? The same thing is true about getting more leads and sales online. So for Hunter Springs, the realization was this: customers were online, but being online wasn't enough. They needed to show up organically when someone was searching landscaping in their area, in the paid results when someone was actively looking for design, build, or maintenance, and then when their website actually had to convert the traffic into real inquiries, qualified phone calls, and those form submissions. And beyond that, they had to think bigger. How are we following up with existing customers? How are we staying in front of people? How are we making sure when someone does reach out, we're positioned as the obvious choice? Because the question wasn't just, how do we get online? It was, how do we show up where our customers are looking and turn that attention into book work? That's the shift. And in today's market, what we've got is this on Google. You've got the paid placements at the top. You've got the map listings in the middle there, which are still extremely prominent. Then you've got the organic results beneath that, those little blue links. And those organic results are usually a combination of competitor websites, directory websites like Angie, Thumbtack, Nextdoor, Yelp. And really what we want to do for a company like yours is make sure you're coming up on Google. But in addition to that, we want to make sure you're positioned on the generative engines that customers are starting to use. And what I mean by that are things like ChatGPT. So right now, Google's still the dominant player. A majority of customers are still using Google in today's market, but there's a trend happening in those generative engines, and we want to be aware of that. We want to make sure we're positioning the company to come up wherever customers are searching. And so in the case of Hunter Springs, here's what we focus on for them. First, let's make sure they have a great website that's built to convert, not just something that looks nice, not just something that ranks, but something that actually turns the visitors into real inquiries. Then we said, let's make sure they're coming up dominantly in all the places their customers are looking, on the map listings, in the organic results, and where it makes sense in paid search. If you search for them on ChatGPT, Perplexity, Coullard, or even just ask AI tools about landscapers in their area, we made sure they got recommended by AI. And so what we implemented, and what I'm going to walk you through today, is what we call our growth engine. And so all the key things you need to be plugged into if you really want to maximize your lead flow online. And over time, here's what happened for Hunter Springs. The lead flow increased, more qualified leads month over month. Here we've got 167 qualified leads a month via the internet. And as their internet marketing got dialed in, revenue followed that. They increased revenue by more than $100,000 in their first month with us. And they told us they heard in the industry that people weren't getting the calls, but they were. Their vendors who they order material from told them it was a down year, yet they become one of their top orders. So let's get super tactical now. Let's apply this to your guys' business. And again, that workbook is going to be very helpful. wslandscapemarketing.com/workbook. You can grab this and track along with me. Mark or Becky, if you could please drop that into the chat again. If it's not right at the bottom, I'd appreciate that. And so this is the model we're going to talk about in today's market in order to triple your sales. And ideally, you could triple your sales over the next 12 to 24 months by fully implementing this strategy. Now, obviously, you got to keep innovating. You've got to keep moving towards where things are headed. But we call this our growth engine for lawn and landscape companies. In order to have consistent accelerated growth in your lawn and landscape business, number one, we've got to drive leads, right? We've got to drive interested homeowners, people with a project, people with a problem, people actively looking for lawn and landscape services that your company can solve. Number two, we've got to maximize conversion. And this is where most marketing agencies don't really focus. Most agencies will tell you, we're going to generate the leads, that's the job. But generating leads is only half of the equation. We got to convert the traffic into an inquiry, then convert that inquiry into a booked job. And ideally, convert that one-time customer into a repeat customer that uses you again and again and again, and then also refers you to others. So it's not just about more leads, it's about maximizing conversion at every step. From there, we've got to optimize results, which means if we're going to set goals, we're going to set targets, we're going to invest money, we've got to track it. We need to know, how much are we spending on SEO, on organic strategies, on paid search, on local service ads, on Facebook ads, on retargeting. How much are we spending? And then more important than that, what's actually generating results for us? Then we make sure we're allocating our budget to the channels that are actually producing the best return, and then cut out the others. We have to optimize for best results. And so when it comes to driving leads, regardless of how you break it down, first you've got organic here on the left. And we want to make sure we're optimizing the organic play, which means showing up on Google, Google Maps, and even platforms like ChatGPT, I would call organic too. These are free listings online. These are the leads we don't have to pay per click for. These are the leads we don't have to pay per lead for. High intent homeowners finding you organically because you've actually positioned your company correctly online. And right now, there's a lot of language being thrown around when we talk about organic, when we talk about SEO. So SEO, search engine optimization, that usually means getting your rank in the search engines. In today's market, that still primarily means Google. There's a little bit of search volume on Bing. There's still some opportunity there. But now you're also hearing two new terms kind of buzzing around. There's AEO and then there's GEO. AEO is answer engine optimization. That's optimizing for platforms like Alexa or Siri, where people are asking questions and getting direct answers. Then there's GEO, generative engine optimization. That's the platforms, the AI ones like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, Copilot. So when I say organic, I don't just mean rank on Google. It means we've got great content, great information, proper structure and schema on the website so your company can show up, whether it's Google, ChatGPT, or whatever platform your customers are using to search. And so we've been testing this very closely across Google and the different AI platforms. And what we found is that a lot of the core strategies we implement for Google SEO still actually apply really well to generative search and those AI engines. The fundamentals of SEO work, but here's the nuance. There are a few specific things like how your website is structured, the types of pages you create, how your schema code is set up, how your company is referenced across trusted platforms. That can influence whether you show up in generative results. And what we're seeing now is when someone searches inside ChatGPT, it's not just giving a paragraph response in some cases. In many cases, it's actually pulling in local businesses. It's showing options. It's referencing real companies. It's showing maps of the location. So when I say organic, again, I don't just mean Google. I mean making sure your company's positioned so that whether someone searches on Google or asks an AI platform the best landscape company near them, you have that ability to show up. But fundamentally, what we have to do is make sure we give them the search engines and the generative AI engines the right information about your company. That's what it's all about. This means having dedicated page on your website for each of your services you offer. If you're a lawn or landscape company, that means you need a page for patios. You need a page for maintenance. You need a page for lawn care, a page for fertilization and weed control, maybe outdoor lighting if you guys do that, maybe drainage. But these are the terms people are actually typing in. Then we've got to optimize each of those pages correctly. Title tags, H1 tags, meta descriptions, on-page copy, schema markup, and the content on those pages has to be unique. Yes, you can use AI to assist, but you can't just dump generic AI-generated content on your site. There's too much low-quality content out there already. We want accurate, unique information, ideally tied back to real authorship inside your company, because that builds authority. Authority improves your ranking and improves how well you show up, even in the AI engines. And now when it comes to organic, again, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is still your Google map listing. You need that properly claimed, properly optimized, with consistent posts, great imagery, updated services, Q&As answered, reviews coming in, responses to those reviews. All of that impacts how well you rank on that map. You also need to be putting out content consistently, content that answers real questions your customers are asking, not just here's what we do, but answering the questions homeowners in your market are typing into Google. When you combine your services, your service area, and real questions your market is asking, that's how you build authority. And outside of that, build trust over time through citation, through links, through those reviews. That's how the organic visibility compounds for you guys. Braden asked in the chat, are you seeing one-pager websites rating less than multi-page sites? That's an excellent question, Braden. I kind of have a saying when it comes to Google, and I like to think of ranking on Google, and you can think of it as ChatGPT-2 as an open book test. So if you go to Google and you type in patio installation in whatever city you're located in, or retaining wall installation in whatever city you're located in, just kind of like finding the answers in the back of the test book, Google is going to show you its favorite pages for those different searches. And what we usually find in any given market, if you're typing in patio installation near me, there's 10 pages all about patios on the page one there. If you're typing in, fertilization and weed control near me, there's 10 web pages about fertilization and weed control. So it's beneficial to you guys to be very granular with the different pages on your website. And for each service that you have, especially if you offer it independently, have a page that's very detailed about that service. Have pictures of the service on that page. Talk about, the uniques of your company as it relates to that service. So don't just say, build your outdoor dream living, your outdoor living space, your dream space. Talk more about what materials you use, or maybe your specific recommendations for your geographic location. Like Hunter Springs, they're in upstate New York, so they build outdoor kitchens, but they typically steer people away from installing sinks into their kitchens because it's a pain in the neck to winterize. So they put that information onto the outdoor kitchens page, and people read that and they're more likely to convert into leads. And Google reads that and it says, wow, they're really detailed about this topic. We're going to go ahead and rank them for that patio page. So yeah, Braden, to answer your question, the more the merrier when it comes to pages on the site. You're going to get more ranking, definitely. But tactically speaking, there's very specific things we want to do on our websites to make sure we come up in the search results. Looking back at Hunter Springs again, if we run the search East Syracuse landscaper, you can see they show up in the map pack here and AI results like ChatGPT. But what I really want to focus on is the data kind of behind that. This is their third month working with us, 4,500 invested in online marketing for this third month, 175 leads. That spend there includes their investment with us and their paid search ad spend. And we're really closely tracking, what does that investment produce in terms of the leads? So again, 175 leads this month, which breaks down to $25.86 per lead. But here's the key part, where are those leads actually coming from? There's 53 from pay-per-click advertising. That's things like Google ads, local service ads, 97 from Google Maps, and then 25 from organic search. So combined, that's about 70% still coming from organic search, primarily from Google. There's a little bit of Bing mixed in there, a little bit of ChatGPT, but mainly it's still Google. And so for these guys, if all we were doing was that paid search, if we were just running Google ads, just relying on the paid placements, we'd be missing a huge portion of the search volume. We'd be missing out on a lot of traffic and leads. And so that's why I always say, first, we want to make sure we're tapping into the organic results as much as we possibly can. So that's organic. In your workbook, I've laid out a bunch of different ideas. So if you're thinking I need to tighten up my organic strategy, or I'm not sure what we're missing, there's more technical details in there you can kind of reference back to. That's organic. After that, we also want to make sure we're tapping into paid advertising, because we're only going to go so far organically. We can have a great website, build all those pages we were talking about with Braden. We can be ranking really well. We can have our maps optimized. But if the goal is to double or triple your sales over the next 12 to 24 months, at some point, we're going to need to put some gasoline on the fire. And that's where paid advertising comes into play. And so when I think about paid advertising in the context of your lawn or landscape company, I'll say it again, organic is the foundation. We want to make sure you got a great website, a strong footprint online, solid authorship and authority. You're generating high quality, low cost opportunities organically. Up from there, we tap into the paid advertising, specifically paid search. Because when somebody goes to Google and they search landscape contractor near me, outdoor kitchen builder in city, landscape maintenance company, they've got a problem that they need solved. And we want to show up where that problem is happening. With paid search, when it's available, Google local service ads, we can show up in those results in pay-per-click or pay-per-lead. I'd recommend doing both of those channels. If I had to lean heavier somewhere though, it'd be on the local service ads where they're available. That's still some of the highest quality lead flow you're going to get, and it tends to generate a really strong return. Once that's in place, before you go spend money on a bunch of other channels, I would put retargeting in place. That's where the dotted line is there. And that just means pixeling someone who visits your website or landing pages. So if they're in a buying frame, they're going to start to see you again and again on their social media channel, on display ads, on banners, because not everyone is going to convert right away. Typically only 20 to 40% convert immediately. That means over 50% of people who visited your website, they had interest, they just didn't act yet. So the retargeting gives you a second shot and a third shot and a fourth shot while they're still in that buying window. And then beyond that, we should be thinking brand. How to become the go-to landscaper in your city so the next time they need work done, they don't go to Google, they actually just go straight to you. So retargeting and social media ads kind of helps build that familiarity over time. As you move up the hierarchy, automation becomes critical too. And if you're not automatically capturing names, emails, and phone numbers, you're not automatically following up after a call, a form submission, or online booking, you're going to fall behind. Speed to lead is everything. If your competitor responds in 2 minutes and you respond in 2 hours, you're going to lose. Up from retargeting and automation is social media ads. So that's YouTube ads, Facebook ads, Instagram, TikTok. This is also kind of more of a branding play. You can build a very strong business just on organic and paid search. Once you're at kind of a higher level and want to scale aggressively, brand advertising makes sense. It can also make sense for kind of some ancillary services too, like especially if you have a great offer. But the beauty today is you can target very specifically homeowners within a certain radius, certain home values, certain demographics, and you couldn't do that with radio or TV years ago. There's a play for social media ads. And then lastly, at the tippy top there, you've got pay-per-lead and directory services, Thumbtack, Angie, Yelp. The lead quality isn't always great. And a lot of these services, when somebody submits an inquiry into them, it goes out to everyone and their brother. But if you've got automation in place and you want to capture additional market share, there can be a place for those. Those can supplement your lead flow too. And thinking about the paid search campaigns and local service ads, a lot of them can fail. Not because the channel doesn't work, but because they're not structured correctly. There's a lack of understanding around the auction process, quality score factors, how keywords are grouped, how landing pages are built, how conversion tracking is set up, and all those little nitty-gritty details matter for paid advertising. If those aren't dialed in, you can spend a lot of money and not get the results you should be getting. But I do want you to understand something about the paid advertising side. When it's done correctly, paid advertising for a lot of landscape companies can and should be very profitable. So let me walk you through a simple example here. Let's say we're looking strictly at Google Ads, 1,750 invested, and we're tracking everything. If you're not tracking, don't do this. Now bear with me, I'm going to do a little math here, but at the end, I'll make it real simple. So 1,750 generates 28 leads. That's about $62.47 per lead. In a competitive market, that's solid. Now let's run the math here. So 28 leads. Let's say you convert 18% into booked jobs, which is pretty low. I'd rather see you at 40% to 60%. But let's be conservative and say 18%. So that's about 5 jobs. Let's say the average ticket is 14,500. That's nearly 72,500 in revenue on a 1,750 investment. And that's a 40 times return on the investment. And again, this is where I want to make it real simple. That means for every dollar spent on the ads, that results in $40 in new revenue. That's what paid advertising should look like when it's structured and managed correctly. So I can show you a lot of examples like that when paid ads are optimized correctly, when the campaigns are structured properly. Those are the kinds of returns we see consistently. That's what we want. We don't want paid ads to feel like a slot machine where you're putting money in and hoping something comes out. We want it to feel more like a faucet. We want to be able to turn that on and control the flow. And that only happens when the landing pages are built out correctly, the ad groups are structured correctly, your targeting is in place, automation's in place. When those pieces are dialed in, paid ads becomes predictable. And so that's paid advertising. Give me a 1 in the chat if you guys are tracking along so far with that. Now I'm getting a bunch of 1s. Thanks, guys. Okay, so the last thing I want you guys to be thinking about when it comes to driving leads is your database. There's a lot of money sitting in your database. There's our past customers. These are people who inquired but didn't convert yet. They're sitting in your CRM right now or your QuickBooks right now. Let me know in the chat what platform are you using to track your customers. Are you on something like Aspire, Service Autopilot? Is it Jobber, QuickBooks? Is it something else? I'd love for you guys to share that in the chat too. Most companies are going to generate a lot of leads, but they're only going to focus on the people ready to buy right now. They don't follow up with the unconverted opportunities, maximize those customers that they already have. But there's more money in that database, and database marketing simply means we're going to follow up with those contacts. We've got their emails, we've got their cell numbers, and we're going to generate found money without having to spend more on ads or more on SEO. Okay, got a good mix in here LMN, Yardbook, Service Autopilot, Jobber, a couple more jobbers. All right, excellent. Yep, you can do this with, using all those different platforms, guys. So here's a real simple example of that. Seasonally, we can take your list of past customers and send an email like this. Hey, Court, this is EJ with Hunter Springs. I know we put together a front walkway and stoop installation quote for you. This time of year tends to book fast. So if you're still interested in moving forward, give us a call or click this link to schedule. Now that sounds like EJ sat down at his computer, opened up Gmail, and typed that out personally. But this is all done with automation and AI. Then we follow up with a simple text message. Hey, Court, EJ from Hunter Springs just emailed you about your front walkway or stoop installation quote. Wanted to follow up before our spring schedule books out. If you're thinking about moving forward, reply yes. We follow up with a text message because the response rate to those is significantly higher. If you kind of sit back and think about how many unopened emails the average person has, it's hundreds, maybe thousands. But if you think about how many unopened text messages they have, it's usually zero, right? Everyone reads all their texts. And there's different plays you can run with this type of database marketing. One play is urgency, kind of like what we did here. Hey, we've got some openings in the schedule, or spring is booking up fast. Another play, which is really powerful, is upsell. So for example, if someone hired you for a hardscape install, you can reach back out to about the phase 2 steps or maintenance programs or installing audio or lighting or water features. On the lawn care side, if someone's already a fertilization and weed control customer, they're much more likely to say yes to grub prevention, aeration and overseeding, or your shrub and tree healthcare programs. And those are going to be your most profitable services, usually those upsells. So when you upsell to those existing customers, the nice thing is there's no additional customer acquisition cost, right? But the key to being really effective with this is segmentation. You don't blast the same message to everybody. You segment the list into little groups, little pockets based on what they've purchased you for, and then promote the services that make sense for them for their next step. So this example I just shared is from the real world, breaking down the result of just this one message. They're able to bring $26,000 back into the fold just from that single reactivation message. No new ad spend, no new landing pages, no new creatives. It was just reaching back out to those past customers and open estimates with a message that made sense. And this is something we like to do with our clients right out of the gate. We want to get quick wins. So we take that past customer base that hasn't been contacted, then segment it properly, and then send a relevant message, whether it's an estimate reactivation like this one, or the upsell that we kind of talked about earlier. And then we start generating revenue almost right away, before we even touch the ad budget necessarily. So those are the items I wanted to cover in the drive leads part of the growth engine. And so what I want you to do in your workbook, if you guys have got that open for the drive leads portion of what we covered on page 3 there, ask yourself, what's the opportunity here? And you can rate yourself green, yellow, or red. You can grab the little highlight tool or change the text to green, yellow, or red. So green means I'm crushing it. This is dialed in. Yellow means it could be better. Red means we're either not doing this or doing it poorly. So maybe database marketing is red. You're not touching your past customers at all. Maybe organic is yellow. You haven't looked at how you show up in generative search. You're not sure how your maps presence really is. And maybe paid search is red. You're spending money, but you don't really know where the return is. Just identify one of those areas at least. And then if you had to drop one in the chat right now, what is your yellow or red area? I'd love for you guys to share that just so we can all see that, we're committed to improving these areas. Would really appreciate you guys dropping that in. So we talked about how to generate the leads through organic, through paid, through database marketing. Now, the next piece of the growth engine is maximizing conversion, because generating those leads is one thing, but turning those leads into booked jobs and real revenue, that's something else entirely. And the first place that impacts conversion is your website. People are going to land on your site before they convert on desktop, on mobile. There's more people on mobile more than ever. And if your website isn't built to convert them, it's not easy for someone to take that next step. You're going to create friction for them, and friction kills return on investment. You can drive all the traffic in the world, but if the site doesn't convert, the marketing isn't going to perform for you. In your workbook, again, I've got a massive checklist for this. Some key things you should be looking at on your website through the lens of, do I have this? Do I have that? Have I optimized for this? Where's the opportunity here? But instead of just kind of boring you guys to tears and talking through a checklist, I want to kind of show you some visuals, because I think it's a lot easier to see it than to just hear me describe it or read through the checklist. So let's pull up an example of a website that's built to convert. So there's a couple of things we always focus on when it comes to improving conversion on your site. Number one is personality and authenticity. Real photos of your projects, real photos of your crew, not stock images. We like to say people want to do business with real people they know, like, and trust. So invest in some high quality photos of your finished projects and your team in action. That alone is going to improve conversion. Beyond that, remember this. People want to convert in one of three ways. Number one, they're going to call in. That used to be the primary way. Today, it's not the only way. Number two, they want to schedule online. If someone can enter their details and pick a time, even kind of soft schedule in, their search is over at that point. Think about the buying frame. Somebody has a project, they're searching, they click on one site, it only has a phone number, they try to call it, you're busy, so it goes to voicemail, they move on. They hit another site, it just has a web form, they fill it out, they don't really know if you're going to answer, so they go back to searching. But if they can actually select a time on your calendar, even if it's a soft booking, like in that form, if you have a little pick your preferred day and time, in their mind, they've kind of taken that next step. They stop searching. Today's customers used to booking everything online, groceries, car rides, appointments. So online scheduling is a competitive advantage. Number three, chat or text. So sometimes they're not necessarily ready to schedule. They just have a quick question. Do you serve my area? How much does this cost? Do you have availability this week? If they have the option to text instead of call, many are going to choose to text. So your website should have three clear conversion paths: phone call, online scheduling, two-way text or chat. Ideally, we put some automation behind the chat. There's only so many questions people ask before booking, right? We can train AI to answer some common questions and guide them towards scheduling. Even if you don't have full automation set up yet, at least give people those options, because when you do, the cost per lead is going to drop. Your return on your marketing is increasing, and then you become competitive even against larger companies. And if you want to go deeper, again, the full checklist is in the workbook there. But the core pieces we consistently see are working are messaging that speaks to the problem, not technical jargon, phone number clearly visible, top right corner on desktop. Make sure when your website's on a phone, that phone number is visible too. Direct online scheduling, and then two-way chat or text. Those are the fundamentals that are going to turn visitors into book jobs on your website. So next up, when it comes to conversion, let me read the chat real quick. I think you guys put some things in. All right. Crystal says, utilizing your database and automations are probably our yellow red. Excellent. Great place for opportunity, though. That's awesome. Randy said conversion could definitely be improved. Yellow. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, guys. And I like to say, it can be kind of hard to think about where you need to improve sometimes, especially as business owners. But I always remember this saying one of my mentors said to me: awareness precedes change. So you have this opportunity in front of you now. You can fix something and take the business to the next level. So I love that you guys are sharing that. So the next item on the conversion side is, if your website is built to convert, that's going to help a lot. But the other thing that's going to impact conversion is your reputation. Because here's what the typical homeowner does. They're going to land on your website. They think, okay, this looks solid. Then what do? They go check your reviews. They'll literally search Hunter Springs landscape reviews or whatever your company name is. And if you don't have reviews or you're sitting at 3.5 stars, that's going to hurt your conversion rate. So we have to optimize for reputation, strong review volume, so number of reviews, strong star rating, so as close to 5 stars as you can get, and then recent reviews. Because before someone calls, they want social proof. And if that reputation piece isn't dialed in, it's going to drag everything else down that you're doing. The best way to improve reputation in today's market is obviously first, create a world-class experience for your customers, right? That has to be baked into the culture of your organization. But beyond that, you need a system for this. After every completed job, there should be an automatic email or text requesting review. That's been around for a while, but the companies getting the best volume are leveraging automation for this. So earlier I asked you guys, what platform you're using. They had a pretty good mix in there: Aspire, Service Autopilot, Jobber, even QuickBooks. What we want to do is this: once the job is marked as complete inside your system, automation triggers, an email goes out. Thanks for trusting Hunter Springs or whatever your company name is. We'd love your feedback, with a direct link. When they click that link, it takes them straight to your Google reviews page. They're already logged in. They can post in seconds. Yes, you can get reviews on other platforms, but right now, especially if you don't have a lot of Google reviews, that's going to be the gold standard for you. And then when that's automated, your reviews are going to compound without you having to even think about it. So a good example of this company here hadn't received a single review in 2 years, and they're not a small operation. So this is kind of unusual for them. After our team implemented this, process for them, they received these really nice looking reviews where the customers even went out of their way to share pictures and leave detailed feedback. And their reputation in those reviews are a huge driver of their success. So when you've got the conversion vectors in place there, a great website built to convert, strong reputation with consistent reviews, your average cost per lead is going to come down because more of the traffic to your website is going to turn into real inquiries, real phone calls. More of those phone calls and inquiries are going to turn into book jobs. And then when that happens, every other marketing channel becomes more profitable. Organic becomes better, paid ads becomes better, database marketing becomes better because you're converting at a higher rate across the board. Braden asked, I know the obvious answer is do good work. However, what is the best way to go about ensuring the reviews are truly a 5-star, not 4? So yeah, great question. I love that you asked that. One approach we love to use, and this is really the approach, that we use for most of our clients, is we'll send out that message. Hey, we said just had a crew on your property. Would you please consider leaving us a review? And then there's a little link that they can click. So instead of just sending them directly to leave the Google review, a great strategy that works is you can send them to a page on your website. And then on that page, you kind of build out this little system where there's a smiley face, a medium face, and a sad face. And those are 3 different buttons they can click. And we've asked them for feedback at this point. So if they click the smiley face, we know they're probably going to leave us a 4 or 5-star at least, that's going to be fine. If they click the medium or the sad face, we know that something's wrong. So when they click the smiley face, we'll take them to another page on the site that says, thank you so much for the feedback. Please consider leaving us a Google review. If they click the medium or the sad face, we send them to a different page on the website, which is more of a quality assurance form. We say, hey, thanks for the feedback. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to improve. We like to send that form directly to the client. So that's going to accomplish 2 things. It's going to kind of filter out those bad reviews, the real bad ones. And then it's also going to give you guys to get that world-class level of experience because you can address issues. And, we've worked with clients who gave us a list of customers who thought they were all happy, but, a lot of them clicked on that sad smiley face for one reason or another. Oh yeah, no problem, Braden. You're very welcome. It's a little bit of a process to set up, obviously, because you got to build a separate page on your website with the smiley face, the medium face, and the sad face, or give them numbers to pick or something, but you need different links. But yeah, that's very effective at getting reviews. And kind of one more less fun answer is, guys, just go out and get the reviews. You're going to get some bad ones, just like you get some bad customers. But in general, we found more often than not, if you're doing great service, the 5 stars are going to outshine those low reviews over time. So I would just, not hold yourself back from getting them for fear of the bad reviews. You can put systems in place to help, but don't be afraid to go out and get those because it's just going to hold you back if you're not acquiring them. Awesome question. So here's what I'm going to say when it comes to lead flow. There's a million different ways to generate leads in your lawn or landscape business, right? SEO, paid search, print advertising, like wrapping your trucks or flyers, referrals, word of mouth, Thumbtack, Nextdoor. There's no shortage of way to generate leads. The problem that I see more often than not isn't that companies don't have enough leads. It's that they're not converting enough of the leads that they're already generating. So for companies that only offer phone as a conversion option, they're often only converting 40% or less of the inbound calls. Then you've got web forms, so a contact form on the website. If all someone can do is fill out a form and wait, that's where leads go to die because no one follows up fast enough with those. No one has automation in place. By the time somebody gets back to them, they've already booked with your competitor. So, why is that happening? Because leads you don't follow up with in 15 minutes or less go cold. And honestly, I think it's actually closer to 5 minutes. If they called in, if they submitted a form, if they started a chat, and you're not responding quickly, they're going to move on. And the average customer needs 5 to 7 touches before they convert. But almost every lawn and landscape company I know is only focused on that immediate conversion. They called in, do you want to schedule? Yes or no? If it's no, the call ends, no follow-up, no text message, no second touch, just hoping they're going to call back when they're ready. If we're just a little more assertive, leveraging automation, we're going to capture more of those opportunities. And here's the reality. Today's customer again, often prefers to interact via text. Most companies still rely on phone and dispatch staff, but we need to connect with the customer the way they prefer to connect. And more often than not today, that's via text message. So the solution absolutely exists in today's market. Marketing automation has been around for years, but now it's easier than ever to implement. And there's really no excuse not to use it. We can make sure every lead gets followed up with in 2 minutes or less. Phone call, text message, email immediately. Then if they don't convert right away, they get added into a simple drip sequence based on whether they booked or didn't book. So it might look like, hey, you reached out about your landscape project the other day. Did you get that taken care of? Or just checking in, are you still looking to move forward? Keep following up, because a lot of these leads don't convert, not because they weren't interested, but just because they got busy, right? Life got in the way, life happened. But if you stay in front of them, you're going to win. You're going to capture those opportunities that everyone else lets slip through the cracks. And so our solution for this is custom automations we build for our clients. It's the entire flow from lead to booked job, to review request, to repeat client, to referral, all built into one system. It's not just about responding faster. It's about owning that entire customer journey from the moment they raise their hand all the way through to becoming a repeat referral client. And we can integrate with most of the dispatch platforms you guys mentioned today, whether that's Aspire, Service Autopilot, Jobber, QuickBooks, something else. This is something we configure, optimize, and implement for the clients we work with. Because when the automation is dialed in, those conversion rates are going to go up, the cost per lead goes down, and then your profitability increases across the board. So when it comes to the conversion optimization, where's that opportunity? I want you guys, again, to identify that red. Is it that your website doesn't have those 3 clear conversion paths, the phone, the online scheduling, the two-way text or chat? Is it that you don't have a review request automatically going out every completed job? Or is it automation? Are you still manually picking up the phone, manually sending emails, manually following up, while competitors are responding to every lead within minutes via phone and text, and they don't even have to lift a finger for that? Where's the opportunity for you guys right now to stay on the cutting edge with that conversion? I'd love you guys on that conversion side. It's in your workbook to drop that in the chat. So again, easy way to do this is take a look at page 3 again. You can just highlight the color that makes sense in that middle section, website, reputation, automation. I'd love for you guys to drop, where you see some opportunity to improve in the chat. Greenscape asks, any recommendations on AI phone attendance? So for our agency, we use a platform called Go High Level. It allows us to hook into a lot of other platforms. I don't know any offhand. I'd be happy to follow up with you though after the fact. If I can reach out to some of my peers specifically, if there's any outside of agency platforms. I don't know any offhand though. And then Crystal asked, what is the age range you would say that text is not as effective? For example, we have a lot of clients that are 70 plus and can struggle with the online platforms and prefer a call over text or email. Crystal, I would just say do all of it. You don't necessarily have to worry about like text this small batch of clients, email this batch of clients. I would train your team, if your demographic is in the 70s, I would train your team to be able to reach out to them. And one really neat feature that's out there that could work well for you guys is it's sort of this automatic call feature. So there's a way, in automation, let's say somebody submits a form on your website and they fill out their phone number. There's a way to have that actually call your office, and the customer hasn't necessarily called you yet, but it kind of calls the office and then it calls the customer automatically for the office. So that's a way to sort of automate the phone call process. All right, excellent. Randy says automation. Crystal says automation. Excellent. Thanks for sharing, guys. Automation seems to be the big one. I totally agree. It's definitely an opportunity, especially in this age of AI. There's so many things you can do to simplify your workflow and then improve that conversion. Okay, last but not least on our growth engine here, optimize results. If we really want to triple sales and create that accelerated growth, there's 3 things we got to focus on. Number 1 is total spend. Nobody loves this conversation, but if you want to go from 1 million to 2 million, from 2 million to 5 million, or from 5 million to 10 million, you're going to have to invest more. There's a percentage of your revenue or your target revenue that needs to be reinvested into marketing. And now that varies based on how aggressively you want to grow. But what I see all the time is this, a lawn or landscape company grows to 3 million or 5 million. They've been there for years. Then we ask, what's the marketing budget? they're spending the exact same amount they were spending 5 years ago to get where they are today. And if we want to grow, we have to increase investment. You can't expect different results from the same level of spend. And so what we found, and we've got a custom calculator that's in your workbook you guys can check out. We use this as part of our annual planning process. First, we want to get clear on where you are today. Second, you want to get clear on where you want to be 12 months from now, and then reverse engineer that. How much would we need to invest in marketing to make that goal a reality? How many leads would we need per month? How many booked jobs? And then we track against that, because what gets measured gets done. Now, when it comes to what percentage to reinvest back into marketing, that's going to be based on the data we've seen across the industry. If your company is under $2 million in annual revenue, you're going to want to invest 5 to 10%. Oops, I keep doing the 5 to 10% in your annual revenue back into marketing. If you're at the 2 million to 5 million revenue, you want to invest 3 to 4%, 5 to 10 million in revenue, 2 to 3%, and then 10 million and beyond, 1 to 2% back into marketing. So to kind of zoom in on one of those bullets, wherever you're at, let's say under 2 million, and that's the 5 to 10% of your revenue invested back into marketing. The low end of that range, the 5%, that's to maintain where you're at. 7 or 8% is moderate growth, and then 10% is aggressive growth. Now you've got enough fuel to fully implement the strategies we talked about, and yes, that number can feel big unless the tracking is dialed in. Because if you're tracking the return and I'm spending $2,500 a month and I'm generating 50 grand back, you're happy to spend that. Now, the next metric is average cost per lead. So don't go spend a lot of money on advertising if you don't have tracking dialed in. At minimum, you need to know I'm spending 5 grand a month. How many leads am I getting? From there, what's my average cost per lead? If you don't know that number, you're flying blind. Because once you know your cost per lead, you can back it into everything else. How many leads do I need? How many booked jobs? What's my return? It starts with the total spend, total leads, then average cost per lead. You got to have that number hammered in. So we track this metric very closely. I showed a couple examples through the course of the workshop, but at a minimum, we know how much we spent, $3,700, which again is the investment that's paid to us, plus the spend paid to Google and Facebook and things like that. We tracked how many leads were generated. We're tracking everything: online bookings, phone calls, organic leads, paid search leads. In this case, it totaled 167 leads. So then simple math, 3,700 divided by 167 equals $22.41 per lead. We want to know that number and track against that number. At the same time, don't obsess too much over that number. Who cares if you're getting $10 leads, if they're all unqualified, or if they're all low ticket jobs or one-time mows that you don't even want more of. There's a place where you can and should pay more per lead, because on the back end, it's a high quality customer. It's a larger project. It's a high margin service. So cost per lead matters, but the quality matters more, right? I'd rather pay $75 a lead for a 100 grand design build project than $10 per lead for the one-off mows or small jobs that don't move the needle. And then ultimately, if we want accelerated growth, if we want to go to the next level in your lawn and landscape company, we have to track ROI, return on investment. At the end of the day, who cares how much you're investing if there's a return? If you're putting money in and you're getting significantly more up on the back end, we can keep rolling that forward. So here's where this really comes together. What we want to do is connect the dots, between the leads we generate and the actual dollars that show up in your financial system, whether that's Aspire, Jobber, Service Autopilot, QuickBooks, whatever you're using. By matching the phone numbers and emails from your lead sources to what's in your CRM, we can trace the revenue back to the marketing, not just booked jobs, but estimates, repeat customers, and lifetime value. And that's where that guesswork disappears. You see the true return. So for example, with Hunter Springs, in their first month running PPC, we could see exactly what came in. And in one case, a single Google search lead turned into multiple jobs. That's over 30 grand in revenue from that one customer. And when you have that level of visibility, you can confidently allocate more budget. It doesn't matter spending $22 for that anymore, to the channels producing the best outcomes. And that's when your marketing stops feeling risky and starts functioning like a true growth engine. And this is something we regularly set up for the clients we work with. But even if we never work together, I just want you guys to kind of be aware that tracking is absolutely possible. So if you're planning to invest serious money into marketing, you should be aiming to get this level of visibility and accountability. And so we come full circle in the growth engine. And when you think about optimizing the results, what's the red flag for you guys? Is it that you're not spending enough? Maybe you're only reinvesting 1% of revenue and expecting aggressive growth. Is it you don't know your average cost per lead, or you're not tracking the true return on investment? You're just saying, well, we got some leads, hopefully they turn into some booked jobs. That's guessing. The model is simple. Drive leads, maximize conversion, optimize results. But it only works if you're honest about where the gap is right now. So ask yourself, where's the red flag for the optimized results? Drop that into the chat, guys. It'll be the total spend, average cost per lead, return on investment. So that's the growth engine, everyone. Hopefully there were some good insights here for you all. Hopefully, as you went through your workbook, there was some clarity. It's a simple framework. Simple doesn't necessarily mean easy, but if you consistently execute on the 3 areas we talked about, you absolutely can generate better results online. And more importantly, you can create predictable, scalable growth in your business. If you're looking for help, we'd love the opportunity to connect with you guys. It all starts with a complimentary assessment. There's no cost to this, no obligation. It's not weird. It's just a chance for us to look at where you're at, identify some opportunities for you, and then see if we'd be a good fit to help you guys out. On that call, here's what you're going to get: a full marketing audit. So an analysis of your online visibility, this really neat ranking heat map, so you can actually visually see how you're coming up in your local market, where you're coming up, where you're missing out. We'll take a look at your website. We'll take a look at your Google business profile, and we'll identify some specific opportunities that you could actually take advantage of. And in that meeting, you'll walk away with some practical fixes, things you could implement yourself. And honestly, you're going to leave that with massive value in terms of clarifying your strategy moving forward. And if you'd like to talk about how we can help implement that for you guys, we're also happy to have that conversation too. If you want to take us up on this, you can give us a call at 585-497-3448 or head over to wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule. Mark or Becky, if you haven't already, could you please drop that in the chat? You can also just scan that QR code on the screen. We're going to be around for a minute or two longer. If you guys have any burning questions, I've loved the interaction so far about anything we talked about or anything we didn't talk about, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll stick around here for a little bit. Excellent, guys. Appreciate the interaction again. Thanks for being on here today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate those of you who are active in the chat as we went through this. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out anytime or take that next step and schedule a time to connect. Head over to wslandscapemarketing.com/schedule and we'll see you guys again real soon. Bye, guys.